How dare you to challenge the system?
We have a lot of trans person who lives in the shadows that is homeless and who are HIV positive, who identify trans. They have nowhere to store their medication. They would like to, be in a place where they could take a shower, talk to a doctor, see a psychologist, talk to a nurse, bring other persons to be tested. And there's not much support where that is concerned. So I'm thinking about, looking at a drop-in center before, like in 2018, at least for 2 years to see what we can do for the community.
The challenges I face have changed over time, right? So for me, because I'm medically transitioning, it's a little bit different. So like 11 months ago, before I started hormone replacement therapy, which was 11 months ago, people perceived me a lot more as being female. So because of that, and addressed masculine, so my gender expression and my gender identity, for a lot of people, they couldn't see the difference, or they can't tell how I identify, because that's personal, right? So they would look at my gender expression to kind of say, okay, this person looks a particular way. And so because of how I dressed and the fact that, for example, my chest was visible to many people, they recognized that I was assigned female at birth. So with that comes a lot of challenges navigating public spaces. People tend to always want to know if you're a man or you're a woman. So that's a typical question I would get asked on a very regular day walking in public spaces. So that was always challenging for me.
Some of the barriers which are set out there for trans people is 1, accessing health care, 2, accessing jobs in Guyana, 3, meeting points, which is immigration points we have to cross over to go to various countries. And also major issue in here is our gender-based violence. It's a broad category because most of our trans people in Guyana here faced a lot of violence, and I know it tells on some of our psyche.
In terms of the stigma and discrimination, everywhere is the same. Some of the issues is employment. We are not really employed as trans women. We can't get the employment generally.
Work-wise and all, transgenders is very hard. Very, very hard. It is hard to get somewhere where somebody will take in a transgender to work. So that's why most transgenders you'll find doing this.
They would like to be employed as trans women. These are some of their issues, employment, because if you're not doing sex work, you're not really employable. And I think there are not enough support to become self-employed, because you need your family, and most of them do have that family.
Even before, a couple years ago, when I would go for a job interview, I feel like I didn't get a job or two because people didn't like the way I dressed, because I didn't dress like a typical how they think a woman should dress.
One of my transgender friends went to access job at a particular security service, and because she was all decked out in her man clothes, but some of the people who are working there are also gay, but they are MSM, which is men, sex, men, sold out on her and tell the management that she's trans and she do prostitution and so forth. That make her not successful.
I think we need to start in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of awareness. I think our government is not even aware that the trans population exists, because we live in the shadows for too long. If you're not in the shadows, you're nowhere, we don't exist, and I think living in the shadows has created this. And why we live in the shadows is because of the stigma, the fear, and the discrimination, and the violence that surrounds all of these things.
We have to celebrate gender diversity, celebrate the fact that not everybody is the same, and that persons of trans experience are as Jamaican as anybody else. And that's a good place to start. Another thing that could be useful is also that we need to respect differences, but generally speaking, there's just not enough support for the community. And right now, our needs are just really not being met.
I want to be able to get my HRTs here to see about my health here. I want to be able to document female on my passport so that I won't be discriminated and stigmatized internationally. And I think, or regionally, I don't think that I should be living like this and still have to put male on my, my documentation. That doesn't apply to me, and there's no information or sensitization or in terms of the gender identity laws issue.
Give you rights like how others have rights, because we need it.
I'm not going anywhere. I could migrate if I want and, go and seek asylum somewhere. That's always optional, but I am not going anywhere, so I would want to think that change is going to come. I'm thinking that change is going to happen.
Lose the fear if you can't put your hand in the air. It is time to take a stand. Show your hand. How dare you to challenge the